Hello children, today let us learn the summary of the lesson The Selfish Giant Part 2. In the previous lesson, that is Selfish Giant Part 1, we saw that the giant was very selfish and he was not willing to let the children play in his garden. And except his garden, all over the country there was springtime, and in his garden it was just winter. The snow, the hail, and the frost and the north wind danced in his garden, and he was eagerly waiting for the springtime. And then one day, when he was lying in his bed, he heard a sound. A sound he thought was the sound of the orchestra of the king's musicians. So, such sweet was the sound. Or you can say the giant had not heard a sound for such a long time that even an ordinary sound of a bird, actually that was a sound of a bird, even the sound of a bird resembled the music of the king's orchestra. So such he was curious to hear a sound or a music, because it was all the rattling of the north wind and the hail that he could hear all these days. And then he jumped out of his garden, and he could even get some sweet smell coming from his garden. And he jumped out of the bed, and he came out of curiosity to see what was there in the garden. What's that magic spell that brought happiness around him? And as he came out, he saw that in each tree there was a child. A tree contained a child, and the trees were all with birds and flowers and fruits, and there was springtime all over. And in only one tree it was still winter, and it was in the corner of the garden. And then beneath that tree a small boy was standing. And previously the giant had frightened all the children away. So as soon as the children saw the giant coming, they all ran away. But this child, the small child who was standing under the tree, which was covered with snow all over, was crying. And as he was crying, his eyes were full of tears. As his eyes were full of tears, he could not see the giant coming, and he was still standing under the tree. And then the giant was encouraging the child to go above the tree. And then the tree was also stretching its branches to the child, to enable the child to climb onto the tree. But the boy was very small, he could not climb up, though the giant was also intending that the child should climb the tree. The child was unable to climb, and looking at this scene, the giant's heart was melted. And now he came to understand the reason why only his garden was filled with snow and winter, and why all the other gardens were filled with the spring season. And then he realized how selfish he was. And as soon as the children went looking at the giant, the garden turned into winter again. So the giant realized his mistake. He felt that he had done a big blunder by chasing the children away, and now he thought that he would allow the children to come into his garden and play. And then what the giant did is, the small boy was standing under the tree. And then the giant lifted the child, put him in his hand, and helped him climb the tree. And as soon as the child climbed the tree broke into blossoms, and it was all spring in the tree. And looking at this scene, all the children came running into the garden. And then the giant, he knocked down the wall, the compound wall that he had erected in order to avoid the arrival of the children. He had closed all the holes in the wall, I said. All that he knocked down the wall, and he allowed the children to play inside the garden. And all the children played, and the giant transformed from a selfish giant to a good giant. And this giant could not forget the first hug of that little child. As soon as he lifted the little child and put him on the tree, the child hugged him and kissed him, and this giant was waiting for that small little boy. Though he enjoyed looking at other children, the first child, or the child who transformed his life from a selfish giant to a generous giant, he was eagerly waiting for that boy, and he did not come. He even inquired all the children whether they knew about that boy, and they said that it was only that day they saw the boy, and they never saw the boy again. And then one day when the giant was eagerly waiting, he had a belief that one day or the other the little child would definitely come to visit him. And then, oh, look, to his surprise, the flowers, suddenly he saw that in the farthest corner of the garden, a tree covered with lovely white blossoms. His branches were all golden, and the silver fruits hung from them, and he was surprised to look at it. He went near it and saw what actually was the reason for such a miraculous tree over there. And as he went near the tree, he found the small little child for whom he was eagerly waiting for. And when he went near the child was wounded, and the giant could not bear looking at the child being wounded, and he was red with anger. He asked, "Who dared to wound thee? Your hands, your feet, who dared?" And he was very furious, and because all these days he was waiting for the child, and ultimately when the child came, it was full of wounds. And the child said, "These are not the wounds of hatred, these are not the wounds of anger, these are the wounds of love." And the little child, the giant was surprised. A small child cannot have this much of logic and wisdom. So the giant asked the child, "Little child, who art thou?" Who art thou means who are you? And then the child said, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to live in my garden, which is in paradise." And the child climbs into the giant's arms. The winter melts away, and they all go into the expanding garden. This expanding garden is the paradise. Paradise is nothing but the heaven. So here we see the resemblance or the imagery wherein the child is indicated to Jesus Christ, who was crucified on the cross because he loved the world so much. And when we love someone, there are of course times when we get hurt. We ought to sacrifice many things, and we have to go through the pain or undergo the pain because we love someone. So here is what this lesson indicates about the sacrifice of Jesus Christ because he loved the world. Hope you all understood, children, the meaning of this lesson, the true meaning of this lesson hidden inside this story of the selfish giant. That is, when people are selfish, they need not do any sacrifice, they don't undergo any pain. But when they love someone, when they are kind, there are moments when we get hurt. But that doesn't mean we stop doing good. We need to always keep on doing good, because we may be hurt on the earth, but the heaven is waiting for us. Paradise, we have a place reserved for us. Thank you, children. Keep helping others. Have a loving day. Thank you, and do not forget to comment in the comment box below. Do subscribe for further updates. Thank you.